Hey everyone, it's Finn here from the NOLA Nerdcast, here with another review, this time for Adventures of Elliot, the brand new Square Enix action RPG done in their now awesome and semi-classic HD 2D art style. The same art style used in the Octopath franchise as well as the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 remakes and the upcoming Final Fantasy Resonance, which again looks incredible. I know some people are getting a little tired of this art style, but not me. I personally love it, and that's going to be the first thing I talk about with this game. But first, a shout out to Square Enix for the review code and the opportunity to cover this game. Greatly appreciated. Adventures of Elliot, right off the bat, the art style is fantastic. It pops, it translates really well into this action RPG style, because this is the first time it hasn't been used in a traditional turn-based RPG. So it could have gone either way, but I think really with the jumping and the platforming and the puzzle solving and the battles, everything still looked really smooth. The animations were really well done. Everything looked pretty. The particle effects, just the actual environmental effects, the shadows, the lighting, all of it, incredible. A little twist on that in all the dialogue when you have the kind of hand-drawn 2D art style profile cutouts. Also, really well done. The character design in this game is really strong. I love Elliot's look, his aesthetic, his vibe, with the red hat looking like a red mage, but with the cloak, and just everything about the designs and the art I have no notes on. That's a lie. I think there might be one note. It is a little odd to me that the character accompanying Elliot is in the bottom left with their own portrait, but it's done in a completely different art style than the dialogue profile cutouts. This one's more kind of like animated cartoon style, almost not quite CG, like a 2D CG. It's kind of hard to explain, but when it's juxtaposed against the hand-drawn 2D art style of the profile talk cutouts, it's a little odd. Doesn't look bad at all. Nothing about this game looks bad. It just feels like kind of a weird tonal, well, obviously not tonal because that's not visual quirk, so to speak. Didn't detract from anything. It was just something I noticed. So I think, all things considered, we can all agree that Adventures of Elliot is a pretty looking game, and no, nothing else to say there. But in terms of how it plays, so if you ever wondered what would happen if Square Enix decided to make a classic Super Nintendo style Legend of Zelda game, this is it. Adventures of Elliot is it. It's, if you've played like Link to the Past or similar games in that vein, then you're going to be very familiar with it. You move around, you have weapons. It almost feels very Secret of Mana-esque with the weapon wheel. You can pause the game at any time and pull up the 6 different weapons at Elliot's disposal and swap between them 2 at a time. And you can even combine them. So, like, you have a boomerang, you can throw that, and while the boomerang's traveling, you can swing your sword at the same time. There's a boomerang, there's a sword, there's a spear, there's a bow and arrow, there's a scythe on a chain, like a sickle type of weapon, and then there's a giant mallet. And what's really cool is there's tons of variety between them. All of them have different charge attacks, and as you level up the weapons and get progressively stronger equipment, it unlocks a new level of charge up that unlocks new abilities. So with the sword, regular sword swing will just do exactly what it says. A charge up will do like a secondary hit with a little shockwave. When you get the second one, you can charge it up again after that, and it'll shoot like a charge beam type thing, a crescent beam that goes across the screen. And it's like that for all the different weapons. It makes it feel like Elliot's constantly getting stronger, and it's really cool. So in terms of his combat prowess, there's a lot of different options to play with your type of play style. Now, some of the abilities, like the bombs and the bows, have limited uses, but you can get tons of them by defeating enemies or breaking open pots, stuff like that. There's other aspects of the game that make it feel very similar to a Zelda. One part is that a lot of the things you're uncovering in treasure chests and throughout the world are shards of life, which is this game's version of pieces of heart. You get 4, you gain a new health bar, and it feels very familiar while also feeling unique to its own self, which I thought was very nice. Let's see. I really appreciated that the game gave you lots of variety. I'll get more into that because between the weapons that they give Elliot, the abilities they give Faye, your fairy companion, and the Magicite system, you get a lot of versatility. But I'll come back to that in a bit. The voice acting in this game, across the board, fantastic. I had no problem. There are some people, and rightfully so, this is very person-to-person specific. The companion characters are incredibly chatty, which by itself, not a problem, but they get very repetitively chatty. Like every time you open your map, they might be, oh, where are we going? Or every time you use a bomb to blow up a wall, they'll go, oh, a cave was there. Stuff like that. And it's fine the first couple times, but it does get very repetitive. And luckily, the game does give you the option to toggle the amount that they talk. So I thought that was a really nice quality of life feature because not everyone vibes with the constantly chatty companion. Like I said, it's your mileage may vary. It all depends very much on the person. But I did also appreciate that there's multiple difficulty options. There's easy, hard, medium, normal, whatever. So that you can, again, tailor the experience to your play style. I'm always a fan of that. Let's go back to that versatility thing I was talking about. So one of the biggest things in this game is the Magicite system, which first off, shout out to them for going the Final Fantasy VI route. That makes everything better. They could have called it the Materia system and been basic and gone with the 7 crowd, but Magicite's inherently better, and we all know that. So we're going to go with it. You can get Magicite shards from enemies and chests, and after you get enough, you can convert it into a piece of Magicite that is basically an equipable buff and a passive upgrade to one of your weapons. So it could be something as simple as an attack up buff for your sword or a critical hit buff, or it could be something like for the boomerang, your boomerang travels twice as far. And there's lots of different combinations you can mix and match because each weapon has its own Magicite box. So each Magicite has a numerical value to it. And with each upgrade, the number value of each box increases. So you can get like 30, 40, 50 slots. And so you can start having really cool, unique, and varied builds that you can base entirely around your playstyle. There are some that benefit blocking a lot. There are some that benefit from not blocking at all and going completely on the offensive. There are some that benefit from working with less resources. Like there's some where if you're running low on arrows, all of your arrows will do critical hits. There's a Magicite where when you place a bomb and as its fuse is ticking down, it'll shoot off like little firework explosions and damage enemies before the big explosion. There is a bomb Magicite that leaves a lava trail when it explodes. There's a boomerang one that while it's in the air, attacks with other weapons have increased damage. There is a sword buff Magicite that it doubles the arc of the sword swing, so you hit more enemies per swing. It's stuff like that. There are so many different Magicite options for each different type of weapon, and it's fantastic. You can literally build your Elliot to your play style and your style of how you like to approach combat between the different weapons, the different Magicites, and Faye can learn different magic attacks as well, stuff like fire or teleporting or speed that also then get buffs on top of it. So like the teleport one, you get an upgrade and it'll turn Elliot invisible to enemies for a brief moment while being teleported. Or the fire one, when her fire meter runs out, she'll do one final like huge nova explosion of firepower. And everything combines into this really cool, expansive, and versatile battle system that you can approach how you want. And I really appreciated that. It was a really cool way to go about this action RPG. It was so expansive and so expressive in how you like to play the game, that it almost makes other aspects of the game pale in comparison, and kind of highlight how weak some of the other aspects of the game are. Because the combat is so fun and there is so many ways to tackle it, that it makes it feel very weird that they went so low with the number of types of enemies. The amount of sprite reskins is staggering. The amount of enemy types is incredibly limited. And I felt that was really strange. Like, you have slimes, you have these little mecha spiders, you have humanoid mechs, you have wolfkin, you have chicken people, like foul creatures, but most of them are just reskins of each other. The actual amount of enemies that you fight is very limited based on the region you're in and overall. And the core crux of this entire game's plot is traversing between 4 different time periods, Chrono Trigger style, but each period still has the exact same enemy types. They might just be different colors. And I thought that really did a disservice to how much work they put into making the battle system fun to play, because you're just fighting the same enemies over and over again. So that, I think, is one of the weakest aspects of this game, is the enemy variety. I really thought they could have done more for that, but what are you going to do? They were still fun to fight. It just, you start hoping for more. Like, even several of the bosses get recycled, and that I thought was even more egregious. But again, didn't overall detract from my enjoyment, but it definitely kept it from being elevated to what I feel like it could have been. The other thing that I think stopped Adventures of Elliot from hitting the highs that I felt like it could have hit is the plot. And I will not get into spoilers here, but I will say that the game is sandwiched in quality. I think the opening moments are strong, and I think the ending moments are really good. But the stuff in the middle starts getting really repetitive and redundant and kind of loses the plot, so to speak, because you have these 4 different eras, but fundamentally they really didn't do much with it. I really expected more from going to these different eras. Every cave is in the same place. Every dungeon is in the same place. And yeah, some parts, like there are some dungeons that can't be completed in different eras. You have to go to the specific era where enough is opened up to complete. But for the most part, you have to re-explore the world 4 times, and it all is very samey. And that you have to compare it to Chrono Trigger, because it's from the same company with the same concept. And even though you can see where certain places are across different time periods in Chrono Trigger, they also treat it like, hey, 1,000 years have passed, stuff's going to be different. Geological features have moved. And so you get the vibe that you are in the same world across different periods, but it never feels like every period is a carbon copy. And unfortunately, that is what Elliot feels like with its 4 distinct zones, or time zones, time periods. And I just felt like with a game whose core plot narrative component was time travel, it would have done more with it. Again, not bad. The opening and closing stuff is good enough that I still feel like the game was worth playing. I don't think it's going to have a story that resonates with people for years to come like some other Square Enix properties. And I think maybe Elliot suffers from the fact that because it is a Square Enix action RPG, there are expectations for the quality of the story that is about to be told. If another company made it, you'd be like, okay, yeah, whatever. But because it's Square, they have that pedigree, they have that history, they have that expectation. And I feel like even though I enjoyed the story, because I really enjoyed many of the characters in Elliot, so I was invested in what happened to them, and I thought they were really well done. As a whole, I don't think the story is going to hold up to the point where people fondly remember, oh man, do you remember that moment in Adventures of Elliot? But again, that's super subjective. Some people might have really latched onto it and it's their favorite story. I'm not going to begrudge them. But for me, I thought they could have done more with it. Between the other thing that I thought was kind of a bummer is that treasure chests in this game are pretty lackluster. One of my biggest gripes with Breath of the Wild and stuff is you do all this work and you find a treasure chest and then, oh, it's a wooden sword. And you're like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. It just kind of never felt like, outside of getting another shard of life for your health, you either got money or you got magicite shards or you got a magicite for your weapons, which theoretically would be cool. But because the magicite system, when you turn shards into magicite, it's essentially a gotcha system. As you upgrade and level up, you get better odds for higher grade magicite, but it's still essentially randomized. But what sucks is if you get a magicite you already have, they reconvert it back into a shard, which normally would be fine, but it's really disheartening when you open up a treasure chest and it's like, here's a magicite. Oh, you already have that one. Here's a single shard. I think if they had made the magicite you find in overworld and dungeon treasure chest to be unique, and it kind of makes finding them special because, oh snap, I just got this really cool magicite you can't get elsewhere. It's the one of a kind. I think that would have made exploring feel more beneficial and rewarding. But again, doesn't detract from the whole. It just makes it so that finding a treasure chest feels like something you're just doing to complete a dungeon in an area rather than because it's something that would really benefit you. Now, all those points I just said make it sound like I'm kind of down on the game, but again, no. As a whole, taken as a complete package, Adventures of Elliot was an absolute blast, and I really enjoyed playing it. The entire experience was something I really liked, and I think it will go down as one of my favorite games of the year, but probably not in the upper echelon of that. I really like that Square Enix took the chance and adapted their HD 2D system to a different genre of RPG, and it makes me hopeful that we will see more of it. I hope this game is good enough that we get a sequel, because I feel like there is a lot to build on and turn into an even more refined and expansive experience. But for the most part, really enjoyed it. There's issues, but as a whole, I think I would give this an 8 out of 10 because I really enjoyed my time all the way through. I fully explored everything and I regretted nothing. I just think that it could have done more with what it had. And, what are you going to do? So I'll catch y'all on the flippy floppy, fin out, and just be good to each other. Adventures of Elliot.